Clash of the Titans remake of the 1980s. It's 81, isn't it? Film of the same name, which some people hold in very, very high esteem. I have to say, if you're in the Harryhausen area, I'm more of a Jason and the Argonauts Jason and the Argonauts fan. So Louis Leterrier, who's the director, said he was a huge fan of the original, and he said this is one of the first magical movies I ever saw. I was wowed by it. And then he goes on, I jumped at the chance to do my own version. I have to ask you this: if you really love something, why would you want to remake it? There's a famous story about when Friedkin remade Wages of Fear, and he met Clouseau, and Clouseau said, "What are you doing now?" He said, "I'm remaking your movie." And then there was a pause, and he went, "Well, it won't be as good." And of course it wasn't. The thing is, if you're going to remake something that was rubbish the first time, remake something that wasn't much good, remake something that you hated, remake something you can do something with. I don't understand loving something and therefore wanting to remake it. Anyway, the plot, if that's not too heavy a word to use, is basically the gods are crazy because the Greeks are overthrowing the gods, and therefore the gods in the shape of Liam Neeson and Hades, who is pulled up from the depth, played by Ralph Fiennes, and threatening to unleash untold, unheavenly woe upon man. Basically, bunch of top-level actors standing around in wispy beards. Here's a clip.
Zeus, you must bring an end to this. They attack our temples.
Now they dare to desecrate Zeus's image.
We could reach out to them.
An accommodation could be made. A truce.
Now! I created them, and they reward my love with defiance. There will be no truce.
I reckon they had a great time making that. Big, shouty, godlike actors.
Well, the funny thing is, you've seen the trailer for this, right?
That's all I've seen.
Yeah, fine. Well, you have sort of seen the movie. The trailer is laugh out loud funny. I mean, the sight of Liam Neeson with the big silly beard and the costume, which looks like somebody watched John Borman's Excalibur and went, "Can we do that? Can we do the thing when everything shines a little bit too much?" We'd have that, fine, okay? And obviously now you've got more Wizzo special effects than one had in the past. So now you've got great big, so you've got huge scorpions, and you've got Medusa's head, which we've seen a million times, most recently in Percy Jackson. Because here we have Sam Worthington as Perseus. Now I can't see Perseus without thinking Percy Jackson, and I can't see Percy Jackson without thinking Benjamin Sniddlegrass. So this is all territory which has been sort of thoroughly worked over. So the question is, what does this bring to the table that perhaps we didn't have in the past? And on the plus side, Wizzo special effects, therefore the big scorpions look more like they're actually there, and a monster rising up from the beast in the shape of the Kraken, which has to be awakened, although I have to say there is no monster in it that is anything like as exciting as the monster at the end of How to Train Your Dragon, which we'll move on to. So,
can I just ask you a question about that? About the Kraken? Because I watched the
Kraken wakes.
Yes, indeed. And I watched the trailer and commented at the time, it's unusual to see a trailer which then shows you the monster.
I know, which is
because
why
the whole point is just keep it a little bit secret, so that then when we see the monster reveal, we go, gasp, that's
exactly.
a monster.
And I feel confident in not giving away any plot spoilers on the guys that if you've seen the trailer, this is all in it. I mean, that's the most amazing. It's all in. If you've seen the trailer, you've pretty much seen the film, but without the headache-inducing thunderousness of watching the film itself. So, the script is terrible. The acting is completely wooden. The sort of the romantic element of the narrative, romantic with a capital R, is boring and uninteresting, and the interaction between the human characters is totally without merit. So therefore, what you're left with is a series of set pieces in which you go, okay, well, are they more or less exciting than before? Well, frankly, if I'd seen it in 2D, I might be inclined to say, well, you know what? It's rubbish, but it's cranked up rubbish that if you're an 8-year-old boy and you want to see a scorpion charging around, that might be quite exciting. What happened was that in the wake of the blockbusting success of things like Avatar, we have now been told that everything has to be 3D. So they have taken the film and retrofitted it into 3D. What this means is you take the 2D film and you put it through a computer process that bongles around with the image, and then when put through...
Is bundle the same as footle?
Bongles. Not bundle, bongles.
But if you bungle, is that footling?
Footle, yes. You bungles, footles, rummages, does stuff that is meant to give it a sense of depth. Now here let me read you what it says in the notes. Propelling the audience into the mythological world of the epic action and adventure, Clash of the Titans will be presented in 3D, making the gods even more formidable, the creatures even more fearsome, and taking audiences even deeper in here, yes, into the mythological realms of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. The conversion process is complete pants, okay? It's one thing, James Cameron filming and designing Avatar in 3D, and although I don't, I'm not having it anyway, that is one thing. Taking a film which is designed as a 2D film, then retrofitting it into 3D, and then charging you for the privilege of seeing a 2D movie turned into 3D is completely bananas, and you ought not to have anything to do with it. There's a lovely... I was talking the other day to the guy who was responsible for distributing in the UK the colorized version of It's a Wonderful Life. Do you remember when colorization was the big thing? Movies were designed in black and white, they were made in black and white, and suddenly somebody said, everybody likes things in color now, let's colorize things. And they did a colorized version of It's a Wonderful Life, which was a heresy beyond heresies. There's a gag in Gremlins 2 when they're in a shopping mall and you hear an advert for Casablanca, now in color and with a happy ending. And that was at the point which everyone had understood that colorizing movies is, as Elvis Costello said, like giving your kids a set of crayons and telling them to draw on the television whilst you're watching an old black and white movie. Well, I'm sorry, but 3D retrofitting is to cinema what colorization was to that. It's a completely stupid process. There's a thing that the director said, he was desperately trying to see in the same, but he was kind of, he was on board with this. He says, even though we weren't shooting in 3D, I designed a lot of the shots with that visual style in mind, stepping into new worlds and big creatures coming at you. I designed a lot of the shots with that visual style in mind. So hang on. So you designed a lot of the shots with depth. Well, Citizen Kane, depth. The movie that was referred to recently that we were just talking about, seeing a movie in 2D, 3D doesn't make any difference, right? Any movie, a 2D movie, has depth if shot properly. This whole idea that I designed it with the idea of 3 dimensions in mind. Well, what that suggests is that there is such a thing as designing a movie in flat. I know, I'm going to make this movie with everything happening on an equal parallel, equal plane of reality, no depth whatsoever. Everyone is a cardboard, unless you were directing a cardboard cutout children's theatre with, characters on the end of sticks moving backwards and forwards. Every movie is designed in 3D. That's the dumbest way of describing why something should be converted into 3D I've ever heard, and that's from the director who clearly didn't want to do it. So what you're left with is the headache-inducing spectacle of watching something made in 2D, converted into 3D, badly written, ploddingly played, with some big monsters, which incidentally, through the miracle of 3D, are made to look smaller, because that's what happens when you watch 3D, going, oh, for heaven's sake, can we stop this now?